Hello, AP Psychology students, and welcome to the first section of Chapter 2, Theories of Personality. Today we're going to look at psychodynamic theories. I'm going to warn you, it's just going to get weird today. Freud. Here's a picture of my three kids here, and it's funny, they're siblings, same DNA, everything. Vastly different personalities for each one, which you can see in kind of the picture here at Lovely Rifle Falls. So there are 17,000 words in the English language to describe people. When you poll people about what they want in a desired partner for life, some will say looks or money, but personality, a good personality or a good sense of humor is something that usually tops on most people's list. So this is something that's very important to us. Personality is a distinctive pattern of behavior, of mannerisms and thoughts and emotions that characterizes a person over time. It's kind of who you are. We have traits, habitual ways of behaving, thinking, and feeling. And so this is really tough to nail down because some people think that personalities are pretty crystallized, they stay the same. Some people think they're pretty fluid, that our personalities change with time, with age, with different perspectives, different viewpoints. Some people think that our personalities change based on the classroom we're in, or if we're at work, or we're at home. This is the ultimate battle of nature versus nurture. Is your personality because of your parents or because of your circumstances? Or because you don't like your math class? I don't know. So, all right, let's get weird. I apologize. This video is not safe for kids today. Kids, get off here. It's time for Sigmund Freud, which we associate in our class. Freud is a fraud. He's not true science, but man, he made psychology interesting and fun, and it was something to talk about. And wowzers, you're going to have something to talk about after this. So, psychoanalysis, or psychodynamic is his field. From Freud, we still have tons of things in our culture, in our language: displacement, repressing, denial, you're regressing, oral fixations, Freudian slips, sibling rivalry, penis envy. Oh boy. So psychodynamic is the movement of psychological energy from attachments, conflicts, and motivations. That basically, we have our hand gesture, that it's all in the past. It's all your childhood, how you develop, and your mother and all that. And then also it's your unconscious mind. And just like your rear end that's back there, you've been sitting on all day, it's kind of nasty. And Freud, kind of nasty. So let's get into it. So we have these unconscious processes. The adult personalities and our problems result from early childhood, from problems and issues that we had as toddlers and even into grade school. So how he came to learn these things was he used free association, beliefs, habits, and dreams to unlock what was in our unconscious mind. So the structure of our personalities, we are all born with the id, which is the animal instinct of us, the selfish beast, the thing that just wants to kill and eat and have sex and do naughty, naughty things because it's the only part of the mind that the infant has. Now, when we say pleasure, I'm going to use sex. When we say pleasure, don't think sexual pleasure all the time. So the id wants to avoid pain and obtain pleasure. It's kind of like Beavis and Butthead, if you ever known them. This is cool. And so anything that's cool, they want to go towards. This sucks. Change it. And if it sucks, you go away from it. So that's kind of the it. Our life instinct, our libido, competes with our death instinct. Basically, that we are a competition for happiness, and if we don't get happiness, I could just die. And so it's the pleasure principle. Basically, the id just wants pleasure, 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 pleasure. I want to be happy. I don't care if it's stuffing my face full of pizza or watching a person fall down on the street or watching a funny video or playing video games. I want to be happy. Me, 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 me. The id seeks immediate pleasure to avoid pain no matter the cost to others. And if you know little babies and little toddlers, they are evil little beings. They're cute as can be, but they cry all night. They poop their pants. They do a lot of really weird things because they don't care about anyone else's feelings. They only care about themselves. If you had a roommate, Jim Gaffigan said this, that acted like a toddler, you'd kick them out. They're up all night crying. They're hungry. They soil themselves. You turn around and they're all over your wife's breast. That's not okay. But they're babies. They can't control themselves. And so the id satisfies the need through primary process thinking, the mental images of the desire. So if they can't get what they actually want, they're going to picture it. And so here's a little meme here. The id calls to us in the voice of Cookie Monster. So here's a wonderful video Heavy Metal Cookie Monster. Or not. Let's try that again. This is your id. Thank you, D. Chad Portwine, for that. All right, so next that develops is when you're a toddler is your ego, which is the executive of your personality. It's kind of the decision making. So the mind is kind of symbolized in a lot of textbooks as an iceberg. You don't see everything that's underneath the surface. You see what's on the surface. The id is completely under the surface. That's the total unconscious. Those are evil urges. Like when you're driving down the road and you see someone riding a bike and you have that little slight urge to just run them off the road. I know you don't act upon it and you're like, oh my gosh, that came to my head. That's the id saying, kill him, kill him, kill him, do it. So the ego is formed when the id has to find realistic ways to satisfy its needs, because we can't murder people, we can't steal, we can't do whatever we want. It operates on the reality principle. The id wants pleasure no matter what. The ego goes, settle down, id. This is reality. We can't just kill the guy on the bicycle. We can just picture it in our mind. Or, you know what, we can go get some McDonald's later. So the ego is in both the conscious and the unconscious mind. And then from there, we get the development of your super egos, which is you get into early to middle childhood, which is your conscience, which is your ego ideal. The id and the ego really don't have any morals. They're not connected to morals. And so the conscience is developed through your parents. It opposes and restricts the desire of others. Parents are critical in the formation. It's partly conscious, but mainly unconscious. And we symbolize it in cartoons and media with, little angel, little devil on our shoulder. And so the little devil's the id. The C is for cookie, 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 cookie. And then you're the ego, and you have to choose. And little angel's like, you're going to spoil your dinner. You don't spoil your dinner. You had cookies. You're happy. I mean, I guess the id won with me. Freud believed you needed a healthy balance of all three. You can't have too much id. You can't have too much super ego and too much ego, because that's me, 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 me. And so to deal with this, we developed defense mechanisms. They're used to prevent anxiety and bad thoughts, and they're things that we do to avoid pain. And so in popular culture, you're going to have characters. Anytime you have a group of three in any popular culture, by the way, you're going to have an id, an ego, and a super ego. You don't believe me? Look at Star Wars and Star Trek. The ego would be Jim here. Bones. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a pool boy. The id is Jim, because Captain Kirk, I'm messing this up. Captain Kirk would make out with green ladies. He didn't care. And then the super ego was Spock, because it was all logic. It's easier with Star Wars, okay? Your id was Anakin. He did everything you're not supposed to. Yoda is the super ego. He's always proper. And Obi-Wan's in the middle. So repression is where we bury unsettling memories, which we learned in Chapter 8 that doesn't happen. Projection is when a person's own acceptable feelings are repressed and then attributed to someone else. Like, I'm not angry, you're a jerk, you have a bad temper. Displacement, when you direct your emotions towards something that is not the real object of your emotion. When you get mad and go home and punch your door. Your door didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you yell at your dog. It's not your dog's fault you failed your math test. You should have studied. Sublimation is when you displace it and has a socially useful purpose. You know what? I don't like that I failed that math test, so I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go build homes for the homeless because I was a bad president. Oh, that's Jimmy Carter, not me. Reaction formulation is the unconscious anxieties transformed to the opposite feeling of unconsciousness. When I feel uncomfortable, I make jokes. So I just do that, like inappropriate jokes. And then that's my mechanism. When something's uncomfortable, I laugh. That's a reaction formulation. I'm like, I don't feel good. I'm going to make myself feel better by laughing about it. Regression is where maybe you act like a little child and revert to a previous phase of psychological development. And denial is when you just go, there's no problem. What are you talking about? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. You're like the dog in the restaurant. Everything's on fire. So personality develops through a series of stages. When you come to these stages, you have a different pleasure zone, an erogenous zone. And if you are overstimulated or don't get enough, punishment or reward, it can lead to you being stuck in that or fixated in that stage. So the stages result from the shifting of sexual libido energy, so your pleasure, from one part of the body to the next, which is an erogenous zone. Psychosexual stages, they're developmental periods in which the id finds different sources of satisfaction. If you don't complete the stage correctly, that can cause the kids to fixate on that energy, and then they're stuck there. So this will make more sense when we get to the actual stages, and this is where it gets really weird. So the first stage you do from birth to 1 year is the oral stage, where all of the pleasure you get as a baby is through your mouth. Pleasures come from suppling, from swallowing. If you give a baby anything, they immediately stick it in their mouth because that's how they explore the world and how they sense it. And so somebody that did not successfully get through this, they might be oral dependent personality, which means they're seeking pleasure orally from smoking, from overeating, from constantly putting things in their mouths. Maybe they're chewing, which means that probably they didn't get enough oral stimulation as a baby. Somebody that got too much is oral aggressive, and so they seek pleasure by verbally hostile, ripping on other people and making bad jokes and making fun of Jimmy Carter, who's won a Nobel Peace Prize. That maybe I'm oral aggressive, I'm sorry. And then from there, we move on to the anal stage, from 1 to 3, which is where we're potty training. And to be Shakespearean here, the ultimate question is to poop or not to poop. That is the question, because the id, if you poop, you have immediate gratifications. You got rid of that feces out of you, but then it's in your diaper because you're a baby. But the ego is developing at this point, saying, no, let's hold in the poop. Because if we hold in the poop, then we get a reward. Maybe we get a cookie. Maybe we get like a surprise. And so toilet training is very stressful for kids. It can lead from you get pleasure from defecating immediately, or you can get punished. Or you can wait and do it in the toilet. And so somebody that maybe held in their poop a little too much, they become anal retentive. Somebody who's super neat, stubborn, compulsive, doesn't really go outside of what you're supposed to, they're anal retentive, they held in their poop, the ego won. Somebody who's anal expulsive, which sounds like you probably had too much Taco Bell, you're cruel, disorderly, you're messy, that means that you just pooped all the time. So, got to get through the anal stage. After this, we move to the phallic stage, which is age 3 to 6, and it's strange. Kids that age just like touching their private parts. And it's not in a sexual masturbation kind of way. It's just, they just touch them. They like doing it. You turn around, kids got their hand down their pants. It's really awkward, but that's what kids do. The genitals become the primary source of pleasure, not sexual to the point of ejaculation, but it just makes kids happy to touch themselves. Kids enjoy doing it. They often develop sexual attraction for the opposite parent, the opposite sex parent. I gotta go back. This is all according to Freud, not my theories. This is all according to Freud. We're not aware of these urges because in the unconscious mind. It is evident in this intense love for the parent, and children have to cope with these feelings by repressing them and then eventually identifying with the same-sex parent. And so Freud would say that many people get stuck in this phallic stage because they have to show off to the world how big their penises are. And all the mindedness of the world is just basically, like America showing off, look at our 555-foot tall penis that Washington had, apparently. That's what Freud would say, according to Freud. So, the controversial part of this is the Oedipus complex. Boys unconsciously want to kill their dad and have sex with their moms. Unconsciously. You're not aware of this. This is on the id, way deep down. That animal, the C is for cookie, wants to kill dad and have sex with mom. Based on the ancient play by Sophocles, the tragedy, Oedipus Rex. This can lead to castration anxiety, where the id secretly thinks that if dad finds out, dad's going to take away your penis. And you don't want that. Soon, the boy realizes you can't kill dad and you can't have sex with mom. So you have to identify with the father. And then once you do that, that's crucial to the development of your super ego and your conscience. And you can move forward to become an adult. For girls, it's even more complex because Freud was very sexist in this. It's called the Electra complex. It's just the opposite. They want to kill mom and have sex with dad. But the reason why it's sexist and controversial is because girls have penis envy. According to Freud, everyone has penis envy. Boys want bigger ones, and girls feel inferior for not having one, so they want to possess a penis. Once again, Freud's words, not mine. So girls at that point have to accept their inferiority, identify with their mothers, and then it develops their super ego. That is Freud's theory. It's very controversial. I mean, the Oedipus complex is controversial as it is. Somebody who doesn't get through the phallic stage is selfish, impulsive. They lack genuine feelings for others. By the way, this is from Back to the Future, where Marty's mom's hitting on him all the time. And so, the penis envy thing, I mean, Freud would have a field day with all the monuments because this picture of a penis next to a giant penis. And so all the monuments to the world, to Freud, is just penises everywhere. Look at my penis. There's a big one. Penis, 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 penis. Next, ages 6 to 11, we have the latency stage, which is pretty much just normal childhood. Sexual interest is relatively inactive. You just get to be a kid. You go to recess. You hang out with your friends, you play sports, you just have a good time. Go to birthday parties and have cake, get all sweaty playing, you don't care. Sexual energy is supplemented with other activities like I just mentioned. And then puberty. Puberty comes on and the genitals come roaring back. Age 11 on. Puberty, this is the renewed interest in the area of the body. Now it is truly sexual gratification that people are seeking because of all the hormones. Self-gratification at this age is very common. Sexual and romantic interest in others is a central motive. Most people sublimate that into adulthood because you can't just live your life trying to have sex all the time, into marriage, work, and child rearing and all that. And if you get through all of that, you're a successful adult and you don't have to go to therapy. You probably need therapy after this discussion because you're going, wait, what about my mom and my dad? Ew. So Freud was a starting point. He made it interesting. As you can see, there's a lot to work with there. Many modified it and went further with his theories. Women obviously did not like the notion of penis envy. They actually claimed that there was womb envy, that men were envious of women because they could not grow a child. Clara Thompson and Karen Horney, is how you pronounce her name, said womb envy. Then you have a colleague and used to be a friend of Freud, Carl Jung, Jungian Theory. They actually had a falling out and weren't friends any longer. Carl Jung lived from 1875 to 1961. One of his closest friends had ended with a big fight over the nature of the subconscious. He talked about that there's a collective unconscious, that there's things in our society and our culture that we kind of share in a collective. There's universal memories, symbols, images, and themes, and those can change and adapt over time. We call them archetypes, or archetypes, and so they're really, really present in literature and movies. Like Darth Vader's an archetype for the Dark Lord. And so you have the persona, you have the shadow, the anima, the animus, which is like male and female, the divine child, that's Luke Skywalker, the wise old man is Yoda, you have the trickster, the great mother, the shadow is Darth Vader. You can go through lots of different movies and series and find examples of all these archetypes. So here's Carl Jung action figure. You need one of those, right? So two of the most important are the anima, the feminine archetype, and the animus, which is the masculine archetype. Problems, according to Carl Jung, arose when someone tried to repress their internal opposite archetype. So men, we have the feminine side of us. When we try to repress that too much, it causes problems. And when women try to repress their masculine side, that causes problems. He thought the ego also had positive forward-moving strengths. It's not all about doing naughty things. People are motivated by future goals in addition to past conflicts. It's not all back there. It's actually what's out in front of you sometimes. We can overcome our past. And he's one of the first to actually identify the difference between extroversion and introversion, which we'll get into in later sections. His ideas, though, are more mysticism, philosophy, literature, not really psychology. He is very popular with the New Age movement, peace, love, and all that stuff. And then later on, you have Alfred Adler, who believed that childhood was important too, because of the inferiority complex. So basically, kids grow up not being able to do anything, and so they feel inferior, and so sometimes they get stuck in that. So later in the 50s, we have the Object Relations School. It's a really long video, I'm sorry. Developed in Great Britain in the 50s by Melanie Klein and D.W. Winnicott. They emphasize the importance of human attachment. So basically, it is your mom, your mom, or your close relatives when you're a really young infant, toddler. It kind of builds your basic personality and trust getting through this. And so central conflict is a fine balance between the need for independence and the need for others. The kids need help, but they want to do things on their own. And so how much can they detach from mom and dad? The balance requires constant adjustments and separations and losses. Kids have to fail to learn. Yoda said in The Last Jedi, failure, the greatest teacher it is. Failure, the greatest teacher it is. We need to react to these based on our first 2 years of life. And so how much your parents did for you can really have issues with that. So that's, by the way, my wife and Christopher. This is my mother and me, about the same age. Infants are attached to both the real person and the evolving perception of who their mom or dad was. It's a mental representation. Even if it's real or distorted, these representations affect personality throughout life. Kids of both genders identify with mom first. Mom has more to do with caregiving at the beginning, especially if the mother is nursing the infant. Mothers treat their daughters as an extension of themselves. Boys at some point have to break away from mom and develop their own masculine identity, which is easy to do if there's a father present, but sometimes it's difficult if there isn't a father. Mothers encourage sons to separate and be independent. And sometimes that makes for a more rigid relationship with others because boys are kind of pushed away and have to be strong. Remember, this is a 50s notion. Not sure if it happens still today. So if we look at psycho and dynamic theories, if we look at them today, that many people think, yes, we need to explore the unconscious mind. But if we can't prove what's going on in the conscious mind, how the heck are we supposed to prove what's going on in the unconscious mind? Unconscious is currently impossible to confirm or disconfirm. They've done brain scans. They can see that there's things going on down there. Nobody has an idea what's going on. Universal principles from the experience of atypical patients. Freud studied a lot of weird people. Don't forget, he liked his cocaine, and he prescribed it to a lot of people for a lot of years. He did kick the habit and got off it and stopped prescribing it for a long time. He loved that white lightning stuff. So he generalized his theories from people who went to therapy, not average citizens like hopefully you and me. Also, the theory of personality development was based on retrospective accounts and infallible memories of patients. Memories are reconstructed. We know that there's confabulation and source misattribution, and your things from your childhood you probably don't remember correctly, and your own viewpoint can actually view and kind of modify or reconstruct the memories in a way that fits what your worldview is at that time, your own paradigm. And so there's an illusion of causality that basically this caused me to be this way, and it's not. It's still your choice. New empirical evidence does confirm that defense mechanisms are a thing. Freud was right, with the exception of repression, and that there are unconscious processes of the mind, but they just can't prove it. It's just kind of out there. They're not sure if they can do it scientifically. That's all I have. I know it was weird. I know it was long. I'm sorry. I hope you liked it. I hope you laughed a little bit. One more time. Penis.